Even after nearly 15 years from its original release, the Generation 2 remakes of Heart Gold and Soul Silver are still considered some of the best mainline Pokemon games to date. But there's a new Sheriff Johto in town. This is Pokemonn Rekkles, a fan game that takes place in Johto 6 years after the original events, with Pokemon from Generations 1 through 9, Dynamax, with new characters, story, and more. And the first beta for this game recently released and I wanted to try it out. But of course it wouldn't be one of my videos if we didn't play the game as a hardcore Nuzlocke, which of course means if a Pokémon faints, it's considered dead. The level cap is the next leader's ace, no active items can be used in battle, and we play the games on set mode. If you like the video, or maybe just the sound of my voice, you should consider hitting that subscribe button. I am so close to 20,000 subscribers, I can taste it. Come on, please, just hit the button, especially if this isn't your first time here. And let me know in the comments down below what other types of fan games you'd like me to tackle. But without further ado, let's step back into the Johto region with Pokemonn Rekkles. While customizing our character, we also get to pick which region we want our starter Pokemon from. And since this is a Johto game, I would probably pick Johto anyways, but just like in Pokemon Z, the Johto starters have new evolutions, and apparently they also have Gigantamax forms. And while there are a lot of different fan projects that include Mega evolutions, and occasionally you'll get a new custom Mega, I don't know if I've ever seen a game with custom Gigantamaxes before. We wake up watching the Pokemon League Championships on our television where Ethan has just defeated Red to become the new Indigo champion. And it's time for us to head out on our journey. And after heading downstairs and talking to our mom, apparently our mother and father met while they were on their own Pokemon journey, which is neat. And then after signing our registration paperwork, it's time for us to head outside and maybe meet our future wife. And this is when we're introduced to our rival Alyssa, and I gotta say, I'm loving the Riley hat, and that sweet bow tie. And once we meet up with her, it's time for us to head to Professor Elm's lab. And after heading into Professor Elm's lab, apparently this game takes place 5 years after the events of Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So what we were watching over on our TVs in our room must have been a repeat? Unless it was Red versus Ethan again, and they've just been going back and forth for the last 5 years. But anywho, it's time for us to choose our starter Pokemon. And we're actually going to go with Cyndaquil as our starter Pokemon. And we're going to name this little fella Bandit. And this of course means that Alyssa is going to choose Totodile as her starter Pokemon. And after receiving our Pokedexes, he lets us know that the Indigo League has changed the way that it works. Our first step is to face off against the first 4 gyms in Johto before traveling to Kanto to take on another 4 gyms. And after completing those initial 8 gyms, we compete in a challenger tournament to see if we can proceed to the next phase of the Pokemon League. Then the top 10 people who place in that tournament will take part in the second half of the circuit with the remaining 4 gyms in each region. Which honestly, I think this is a way cooler way to deal with the 16 gyms that are in the Indigo League. So it looks like we get our first 4 initial Johto badges in the same order that we always do. And then with Kanto, as opposed to the Rainbow badge being the 4th badge, it looks like the Earth badge is. After that, we have our tournament before finishing off the rest of Kanto, and then finally, the rest of Johto. And once we step outside, obviously Alyssa wants to challenge us to our first ever Pokemon battle. And now it's time to face off Alyssa in our first ever Pokemon battle. She starts off with Totodile, and we're going to send in Bandit. Alyssa opens up the first few turns, going for a bunch of growls, lowering our attack as we just continue to tackle it. Once the Totodile starts pounding us back, I am getting pretty low and I'm honestly a little afraid of losing this fight, but we do manage to score a crit and grab the KO, but not before activating our Berserk ability, which is really cool that we have that instead of Blaze. Also, look at this little Taillow in the background. I love these battle bags. But anywho, we win. And apparently we continue to keep on battling until the sun goes down. Are you my wife? Is this where I'm going to meet my future wife? After the battle, we head over to the dock where I love these little weasels just swimming together. Apparently, we're going to meet up with Noah a little bit later, who had to run an errand for his dad, but there's something she wanted to talk to us first. Apparently, a few years ago, while she lived in Blackthorn City, she tried to join up with the Dragon Tamer clan, but they didn't allow her to join because they didn't think she'd be a very good trainer. But she lets us know that her secret desire is to prove them wrong, and to get all the way to Blackthorn City and defeat Claire. But to be able to do that, she's going to need our help. She's gonna need to become the best, like no one ever was. And of course, we'll win together. And as we look up together at the stars above, she's totally gonna be my wife. We meet up with Alyssa over on Route 29, where our Nuzlocke challenge officially begins once we've been given some Pokeballs. And over on Route 29, we're gonna grab ourselves a Lechonk, who we're gonna nickname Porky. And I always love when games just give you rare candies. Thank you, Spanish fan game community.
5 little chimchars jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Mama called the doctor and the doctor said, "No more chimchars jumping on the bed."
And over on Route 50, we're going to grab ourselves a Palmy, who we're going to nickname Zip. And for beating up this fisherman's kid, he's going to give us a good rod, which means we can get 2 more encounters on the water in the 2 cities. Over in Cherry Grove City, we're going to grab a Goldeen, who we're going to nickname Nemu, because my daughter can't quite say Nemo. It looks like a New Bark Town. There's not actually any encounters, at least not with a good rod, so I guess we're going to move on. And just like Ethan before us, Professor Elm wants us to head over to a special house over on Route 30 with a very important person in there. But as we make our way up Route 30, instead of getting some kind of weird apricot box, we're going to be getting a Pokevile. And over on Route 30, we're going to grab ourselves a Peaky Pack, who we're going to nickname Sam. Oh my god, you can even pick how many candies you want to give them. This is wonderful. And over on Route 30, when we head over to Mr. Pokemon's house, it actually turns out that it's Professor Oak's summer college, and he's here with his podcast co-host, Leaf. After retiring from being a Pokemon professor, Professor Oak started a radio show. And everybody knows radio's dead. Podcasts are the future. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Oakcast over on YouTube, follow the social medias, consider becoming a member, and definitely check out their Patreon. At the Master Ball tier, you unlock all the bonus content and secret episodes of the Oakcast, the official Professor Oak podcast. But on a serious note, here in Johto, over the last couple of years, people have been coming here in droves to breed their Pokemon, which makes sense because evolution was what Professor Elm was studying in the original games. And Leaf and Professor Oak have been doing some research on a portable incubator, which can incubate several eggs at once. And after Professor Oak forces us to join his Patreon, our tier rewards us with this portable incubator, which can incubate up to 6 eggs at once. And as a bonus, Leaf is even going to give us an egg to put in the incubator. I don't know why I could possibly say no. So it looks like I still needed a slot in my party to accept the egg. But now that I go into my inventory, it shows me how many steps I need to hatch the egg. And I assume it was a glitch, but I actually got Leaf to give me 2 eggs. And I definitely haven't taken 2,000 steps yet, so the incubator must also make the egg hatch more quickly, because a Togepi hatches like wicked fast. And we're going to nickname this little fella Scramble. In the Dark Cave, we're going to grab ourselves a Geodude, who we're going to nickname Big Boy. Over on Route 30, we're going to meet up with Noah and Alyssa. And apparently we were late, even though I didn't even realize we were actually meeting up. So now Noah wants to challenge us to a Pokemon battle. I was not ready for this. Noah starts off with Graviard, and we're going to send in Sam. Going for a peck, we do about a third as the Graviard goes for a Tail Whip. And after going for another one, getting it pretty low, our defense is getting lowered even more, but luckily we can take the doggo down. Next out's going to come Chikorita. So we're going to swap out, this time sending in Bandit as the Chikorita goes for a Growl. But that's okay because I accidentally clicked on Leer, and then it's going to go for a Poison Powder. So when we fire off an Ember, we do just over 50% as the Chikorita goes for another Growl. But just one more Ember takes the Chikorita down, and we defeat Noah. And then over on Route 30, we're going to grab ourselves a Budu, who we're going to nickname Mask. Over in Violet City, we're going to fish up ourselves a Tentacool. At the top of Sprout Tower, we're going to run into Falkner, who seems to be having some sort of crisis. He also mentioned something about reaching a new level of power. And this is when Falkner notices us and says that it's time for him to return back to the gym. But before we're allowed to take on Falkner, we must defeat Master Bellsprout. Master Bellsprout sends in a Bellsprout, and we're going to send in Sam. Going for a peck, we're going to grab a quick Oko on the Bellsprout, which of course is going to lead into a Hoot Hoot. We go for a peck on the Hoot Hoot as it goes for a Confusion on us, doing a bit of damage, but we can take it down. And his final Pokemon, a Mischievous, comes in. So I'm going to swap out, this time sending in Bandit as the Mischievous goes for a Confusion. And firing off an Ember, we do barely anything as it goes for a Growl. And a second one, I was hoping for the burn, but we don't quite get it. But with our Berserk activated, we're going to do quite a bit more damage now, but we're getting wicked low. So just in case, we're going to swap out, sending in Zip as Mischievous goes for another Confusion. Then after going for an Astonish, a Thundershock will finish this little fairy off, and we defeat Master Bellsprout. And before facing off against Falkner, once we start getting to the level cap, Sam is going to be our first to evolve, becoming a Trumbeak. And next up is going to be Bandit, who is going to ascend to its second form of Quilava, gaining the Ghost type. Okay, that opening animation before we faced off against Falkner was absolutely awesome. He starts off with Ducklet, and we're sending in Big Boy. And crap baskets. I was hoping I could just roll out, but we need to swap immediately, and we are sending in Zip. The Ducklet's going to go for a Water Gun, and I'm going to go for a Quad Effective Nuzlocke, getting this thing down wicked low. After it goes for a Defog, Falkner's going to use this for a Super Potion, and we can grab ourselves the Oko. Next out is going to come Emolga. This time we're going to swap out, sending in Big Boy, as the Emolga goes for a Charm. I'm then going to kick up a Sandstorm as it goes for another Charm, because I need to get my special defense up just in case. It's going to go for a third Charm, and now we are at -6. But I don't really have much of a choice, and I'm just going to start going for a Rollout, and we're going to do a little bit of damage. It's going to continue pecking me, doing barely anything, as a second Rollout can take the Emolga down. And this is when his ace, a new regional variant of Noctowl, is going to come in. And good thing I used the Sandstorm before it goes for Confusion, because it still does an insane amount of damage. And unfortunately, with another Confusion, Big Boy gets taken down. So we're going to send in Zip, who's going to go for another Confusion, getting me down wicked low as I go for a Nuzzle, getting it paralyzed. And unfortunately for me, it has a Cherry Berry. So I'm going to swap out again, this time sending in Bandit as Falkner goes for another Super Potion. Now I'm going to start trying to go for smoke screens, because I just need to make sure this thing can't hit me, because otherwise I don't think I can beat it at this point. And once our Berserk gets activated and it's at -2, I'm going to go for an Ember that still does barely anything. This is one chonky fella. And now that we're down to 4, I'm going to swap out, sending in Sam as it goes for another Confusion. And why isn't this thing missing? There we go. It missed on the following turn, and we can go for a couple of pecks. And now we're down wicked low. Luckily, it misses on the following turn, which means one more peck from our Trumbeak takes down the Noctowl, and with that, we defeat Falkner by the skin of our teeth. And after running around for like 75 years, we're gonna go ahead and have Scramble evolve into a Togetic. And apparently I'm gonna become the next Falkner, because we're gonna find a Rookity over on 30, who we're gonna nickname Poe. We run into Noah, and he tries to come and give us a big ol' hug, but he can't because this sheep is in the way. And this is when he wants to show us what he's been working on, his secret base. He figures that this can be our super secret hideout that the three of us can hang out in and have sleepovers and train and just have the bestest time developing memories. And he even put our sleeping bag next to Alyssa's. And he gives me a weird wink that makes me only slightly uncomfortable. And we're gonna grab ourselves a Silk Cobra inside a Union Cave, who we're going to nickname Sneak. And on 33, we're going to grab a C-Dot, who we're going to nickname Lock. As we approach Azalea Town, we're going to run into Alyssa once again. She lets us know that Noah made a passageway to our base nearby, and that we should all meet up to plan before we head over to the gym. And look at these absolutely adorable Bayleaf and Crocodile sprites sleeping. The two of them were talking about how they had their doubts about whether or not they'd be able to defeat Falkner. But I know that I'm born to earn those sweet, sweet badges. But after catching up and reminiscing by the fire for a while, Noah is determined one of us will become the new Indigo champion. And after getting a good night's rest and waking up the following morning, it's time for us to earn our second badge. In Slowpoke Well, we're going to grab ourselves a Dwebble, who we're going to nickname Clippy. Look at this wicked Kurt sprite. I absolutely love his mustache. We're also introduced properly to a Naru, Kurt's granddaughter from the original games. Oh, just kidding. It's his daughter? I always thought it was his granddaughter. But anyway, she asks if she can come with us, and she'll be able to help us make Pokeballs. And it's what she needs to complete her Pokeball creation training. But we're off to Slowpoke Well to retrieve it. And apparently the bottom floor of Slowpoke Well has a different encounter table and a different name, so we're going to grab ourselves a Ferroseed, who we're going to nickname Prickle. And after bringing the notebook back to Anaru, she heads over to our secret base, and we've unlocked the ability to create our own Pokeballs. But she wants us to give this letter to her father because she's too scared to do it herself. And while getting closer to the level cap, Zip is going to evolve into a Pomo. Which means now it's time for us to run around in circles again. The next one of our Pokemon to evolve is going to be Porky, who is going to ascend into the luscious Oinklage. And after running around for like a wicked long time, Zip is going to evolve into a Palmot. Before heading into the Azalea Gym, we're going to run into Noah again. Apparently, Alyssa's already inside facing off against Bugsy. And he suggests that while we wait for her to finish out, maybe we head over to the Elix Forest. And I know I've said this a few times, I really love when the overworld Pokemon are integrated into the game normally. The added details with the Spinnerack spiderwebs all over a bug town is absolutely amazing. And the fact that this place is on the border of the Elix Forest and it looks like it's built into the forest instead of the forest being cleared out for it. The design of this game is absolutely marvelous. Over in the Elix Forest, we're going to grab ourselves a Shroomish, who we're going to nickname Beret. After following the Panslaves to the Elix Forest, we find a kimono girl dancing with just like a bunch of little monkeys. It's just like that Mark Wahlberg movie. And just like 5 years ago, this random kimono girl got lost in Elix Forest. She was apparently chased by a bunch of thugs, but this group of Panslaves saved her. So I guess it's more like Carrie Fisher in that other movie. And now it's time for us to take on Bugsy and his bug Pokemon. Bugsy starts off with Beedrill, and we're sending in Sam. Now my goal here is to set up a couple of workups and then hopefully OHKO all of his Pokemon as we go for the first one. And then this Beedrill goes for a second Poison Sting and unfortunately poisons us as we get to +2. So now we need to work quickly as it goes for a third Poison Sting and an Aerial Ace takes it down. Next down is going to come Heracross, who we don't even outspeed and we get knocked down to 2 HP, which does mean the poisons are going to take out my little Sammy. This is incredibly unfortunate as we're now going to send in Scramble as his Ace Butterfree comes in. And this is when Bugsy is gonna go for Gigantamaxing, excuse you, as Gigantamax Butterfree comes in and poisons us. It's then gonna go for another Befuddle, and we're gonna go for a ×4 Ancient Power, hoping for the Omni Boost, but we don't get it. But we do luckily make this thing fall asleep. And going for another Ancient Power, we're gonna get it down just below half. This is going to lead Bugsy into using a full restore, which should waste his final G-Max turn, but apparently not in this game. But now that the Butterfree's back down to 50% and we're at 7 HP, we need to swap Scramble out. So we do, and we're going to stick Bandit in there instead as it goes for another Befuddle. And unfortunately this time we're paralyzed. As it continues to just lay waste to us, we do get off a Flame Wheel, finish off the Butterfree, and defeat Bugsy. And to replace our little Sammy, we are going to add Beret to the party, knowing that Whitney's coming up next, and evolve it into a Breloom. While making our way over to Goldenrod City over on Route 34, we run into Alyssa being assaulted by these two ninjas, who are demanding that she hand over her Pokemon. And that's when we intervene. You will not steal my future wife's current Pokemon, you fools! And now it's time for us to face off against this ninja. After the battle, Alyssa thanks us because she doesn't think she could have handled them both on her own. But we both have 2 badges, you probably could have. We then let her know that we suspected these are the same people that attacked the Kimono Girl, to which Alyssa responds that we should let Professor Elm know right away. So we need to make our way to Goldenrod City because even in the future, there's no cell phone reception inside of this forest. And over on Route 34, we're going to grab ourselves a Bonsweet, who we're going to nickname Stomp. And another thing to gush about in this game, after meeting back up with Alyssa in Goldenrod City, she lets us know that apparently the police are aware of some strange movements going on in the routes the past couple of days, and that they're already investigating it. And I know I keep on gushing about the graphics in this game, but the tile sets of every single city are different. Goldenrod City is supposed to be the big city of the region, and it looks like it. These are city buildings, they're not little town buildings. This is absolutely amazing. Oh hey, look who's facing off against who. Oh wow, we have some access to some serious TMs. I know that this is only the first beta, so it's not that big of a deal, but I do want to note the fact that my Ghost-type Quilava can't learn Shadow Ball. We headed into Whitney's gym where apparently, as usual, she isn't here. But she's not playing a weird radio game. Apparently Claire is leading the investigation into these weird ninjas and then went missing herself, so Whitney left to try to find Claire. So there's nothing we can really do for now, and the gym guy lets us know to just stay around the city, and once the situation's been resolved, we'll be able to pick back up and face off against Whitney.
And this is where we run into Liko and Roy, who are also apparently taking part in the gym challenge.
But let me tell you something, children. I'm the protagonist of this story. After waking up in our totally separate color-coded beds, Alyssa lets us know that she checked in with Professor Elm to update him on what's been going on. And this is when Noah finally arrives, having defeated Bugsy. And after being totally invigorated after his recent victory, he says that we should go find the gym leaders. Because even though the 16th and most powerful gym leader of all has been captured, there's 3 of us. Oh, this is awesome. So in the Goldenrod Underground, there's a little Hall of Fame museum with the past 4 champions and their teams. And Lance with his 3 Dragonites. And I gotta say, I'm a pretty big fan of Ethan's canon team. Typhlosion, Togekiss, Ampharos, Scizor, Kingdra, and Tyranitar. No wonder you're the new champion. While searching for information around Goldenrod City, we run into another celebrity, who apparently is also participating in the league circuit. She lets us know that she heard rumors that the leaders were heading towards the ruins of Alf. But she begs us not to go, which means that's exactly where we're going. And just when Alyssa and Noah are about to give up, I let them know that I found out exactly where we need to go next. Over in the national park, we're gonna grab a Grubbin, who we're gonna nickname Jolt. Over in the ruins of Alf, it's very obviously been taken over by a variety of ninjas and pirates, and I wonder where these guys could possibly be from. Oh, hold on. There's an R on this guy's headband. After we make our way into the ruins of Alf, and these probably but not necessarily Shadow Triad duo try to fight us, Bugsy and Whitney appear. And even though I beat them like 15 minutes ago, they throw out a Dragapult and a Haxorus? Why didn't they just do that in the first place? And Whitney and Bugsy respond in kind with an Azumarill and a Cleaver. And this is way above my pay grade. And after we get to the back of the rooms, we find a couple more ninjas interrogating Morty, who is just like the most smug looking dude ever in this game. And after we defeat these guys, they toss out a Hydreigon, and why aren't you guys just doing this in the first place? And this is where Daddy Lance shows up. And you know what he does to bad guys. And that's when the 2 ninjas run in terror. Alyssa catches back up with us, and Lance recognizes her right away. Lance says that she's happy she didn't give up on her dreams, but she still has much to learn. Oh, and apparently Lance took over as the gym leader instead of Claire. I didn't realize that. So now that Lance successfully saved himself and we saved Morty, we then find out that whoever these mysterious bad guys are, they're looking for information about Ho-Oh. Bugsy then knows that perhaps Team Rocket has returned. Again.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
But Whitney interjects the fact that Giovanni's under constant surveillance and there's no way he's restarted Team Rocket. But to be fair, he didn't restart it the first time. And now that Lance has successfully saved himself and we saved Morty, we can head back and take on Whitney tomorrow for our 3rd badge. But before we can face off against Whitney, apparently our friends want to have a rock, paper, scissors match to see who gets to fight Whitney first. And after Noah defeats Alyssa in a rock, paper, scissors match, it's now time for us to face off against him. He starts off by sending in Magnemite, and we're going to send in Bandit. And I was going to be really afraid that they were going to be close to the level cap and have full teams here, but a level 16 Magnemite goes down in 1 Flamethrower. Next up is going to come his Bayleaf, and going for 1 more Flamethrower, we can secure the KO, defeating Noah. And now it's time for us to face off against Whitney and her normal Pokemon. Whitney starts off by sending in Wigglytuff, and we send in Bandit. We're going to go for a Flamethrower right away, scoring a massive hit, and then once it goes for a Metronome, we unfortunately get poisoned. But on the following turn, 1 more Flamethrower takes down the Wigglytuff. Next up is going to come our Miltank. And honestly, assuming this thing has thick fat, we're going to swap out, sending in Zip as it goes for an Attract. And unfortunately, my only female Pokemon is Jelly, so we're going to swap into that as it goes for a Stomp, destroying little Jelly. Okay, so we're going to swap out again, this time sending in Beret as it goes for another Stomp. It then goes for an Attract, and I have to hope I can get a Leech Seed off, but unfortunately, I'm in love. But my Effects 4 does paralyze this thing, and we manage to get the Leech Seed off. When we try to go for a Mach Punch, it obviously doesn't work, and another Stomp is going to bring us down wicked low. So we're going to swap out, sending in Bandit, assuming it's going to go for another Stomp, and we can obviously avoid it, sucking up just a little bit of that sweet, sweet healing. Now, assuming a Rollout, we're going to swap out again, sending in Zip as it goes for an Attract. And honestly, I guess my plan here is just to keep on swapping around to avoid this stuff. So sending in Scramble, fortunately, is paralyzed. And this is when Whitney's going to use her first Hyper Potion, and we can go for a Dazzling Gleam, scoring a pretty decent hit. Whitney then uses her second Hyper Potion as we go for another Dazzling Gleam, and now it's back just below 50%. And with another Dazzling Gleam, we're going to bring it down wicked low, where the Leech Seed can finish it off. This is going to lead into her final Pokemon, Lopunny, who she is going to Gigantamax right away into this massive Mega Lopunny. And this is the first time I think I've seen Mega Evolutions turned into Gigantamax forms. And when she Gigantamaxes and goes for a Starfall, it's going to set up a Misty Terrain, so I can't put it to sleep. So we're going to swap out, sending in Zip this time as it goes for a Max Starfall, doing a massive amount of damage. So we're going to pivot, swapping into Bandit instead as it goes for another Max Starfall, doing barely anything. It's then going to knock us way down into the red, activating Berserk, so when we go for a Flamethrower, it just does about 50%. But we need to pivot, so we swap out again, this time sending in Porky as it goes for another Chi Strike. And once we get knocked down a little bit more, we can go for a Headbutt, getting this thing down way into the red, but a crit's going to take down Porky. So we're going to send in Beret and go for a Mach Punch, securing the KO, defeating Lopunny, and getting rid of Whitney. And while fighting our way to the level cap, Jelly is going to evolve into a Tentacruel. Over on Route 38, we're going to run to Alyssa on our way to Ecruteak City, and look at what is just roaming around in the middle of the road. They say there are some trainers who manage to make contact with them, forming an unbreakable bond. Are you talking about an unbreakable bond between the Pokemon or between us, because you're definitely my future wife? Wow, they're talking about Pokemon. Okay. After entering Ecruteak City, we obviously head over to the Kimono Girls Theater House, which everyone knows as the bane of all Johto Nuzlocke's existences. And Men was there practicing a dance, and she wants to thank us for the other day, and asks us to meet up with her over at the Burn Tower. And after getting into the Burn Tower, she lets us know the history here in Ecruteak City. Apparently, 150 years ago, Lugia once lived here, but humans' fear of it led to tragedy. One night, some villains burned down the tower and drove Lugia out of the city, and then blamed it for what happened. Some people theorize that the culprits were actually from Kanto, who were jealous that the people of Johto were living alongside their legendary Pokemon. And that tension between Kanto and Johto still exists today. She then adds that Lugia was not the only victim that day. 3 other Pokemon died that night, a Flareon, Vaporeon, and Jolteon. But then came Ho-Oh, confirming a fan theory almost as popular as Cubones being baby Kangaskhan's. And the owner of these 3 Pokemon founded the Kimono Girls, which explains why to this day they only raise Eevee. Hey, alright, then she gives us an Eevee for listening to her story. And now it's time for us to take on Morty and his ghastly ghouls. Morty's gonna start off with Runegrigus, and we're sending in Jelly. So going for a Water Pulse on the first turn, we're going to bring this thing way down as it goes for a Brutal Swing, doing barely anything to us. Morty then uses his first Hyper Potion as we go for another, getting it way down to the red and confusing it. Of course, this means that Morty's going to go for another heal, and we can bring it down to the red once again. And after Mortimer runs through his final potion, we score a bigger hit and the KO. Ceruledge comes in as his next Pokemon, and going for another Water Pulse, we bring it down wicked low as a Shadow Claw crits and almost KOs us. But we pick it up with one more. Next up comes Geppetta, who's just a Mega Banette but as a new evolution, which is a really neat way to deal with Megas, and we're going to go for a Hex, doing barely anything before we get taken down. So we're going to go ahead and send in our Jolteon, and go for a Shadow Ball, bringing it down to about half as a Shadow Claw scores a massive hit on us. So I'm going to swap out again, this time sending in Zip, as a knockoff does about a third. Then going for a Stab Spark, we're going to bring this thing down way low as it attempts to go for a Will-O-Wisp and luckily misses. Also, why is it raining in here? Anywho, one more takes it down. His final Pokemon, Gengar, comes in. And then he's going to Gigantamax this thing, and I really want to know why I don't even have access to regular Dynamax. But anywho, it's going to outspeed me, going for a Max Ooze, doing a massive amount of damage as a Spark does a little bit. It then goes for another Max Ooze, taking Zip down. So I'm going to swap in Jolteon, hoping that my Jolteon is faster. And it is going for a Shadow Ball, bringing this thing down way into the red as another Max Ooze takes us down. Now we're going to send in Bandit, where I have to hope I can survive one hit, and I do on 15 HP, activating Berserk, where a Flamethrower can take down the Gengar, and we barely defeat Morty. Punt at the cost of half of our team. Morty then lets us know that now that we've defeated the first 4 gyms, we're able to make the next step in our journey where we receive the Dynamax band. Finally, he then lets us know that we need to head back to Goldenrod City and take the train to Kanto over to Saffron. And then from there, we go to Vermilion. And other than a couple of side quests that you can do for the gym leaders that we faced up against so far, that is gonna end this first beta of Pokemonn Rekkles. Which, honestly, even though it's only like 20% done, is already shaping up to be the greatest Johto experience I've ever had. But if you like the video and you made it this far and you're not subscribed yet, what is wrong with you? Come on, do it for my family. But anywho, I'll catch you all in the next video. And make sure to keep your eyes out for this game. See ya.